Hey, hey. Hello, tribe. How is everybody today? I'm a psycho OCD girl, and I got to see myself on here to make sure that you guys can see me real quick. And then I will get into it. Let's see. Yay, there I am. Oh, hey, check this out. I'm live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you everybody for coming in today. I'm not gonna lie, I've been having some major withdrawals because as you guys all know, you got to listen to me talk and talk and talk and talk for 9 days in a row at you. And then I was just like depressed, like I missed my crew. So I'm so excited to be back live here on our Tuesday and to get back into our normal routine of Tuesday live strategic advisory. And you may have noticed in the feed post that I sent out that not only am I going to be walking you through the same, kind of finishing up the tail end of survival through the pandemic, but now as a lot of our practices, I just got off the call with a client who is getting ready to reopen his practice next week in Orange County. They've reopened beaches. We have some parks reopening. It's kind of crazy. I can't even believe it. Hopefully this sticks. But now what we need to talk about is really marketing your practice and not just surviving, but prevailing post-pandemic. Before we talked a lot about the things related to cash flow. We talked about just the nuances of communication, the right kind of communication with your patients. And now I want to talk about getting back into action. We put together our pivot for profit plans. Thank you for those of you who are tagging me on all of those Instagram and Facebook posts, your webinars, all of the ways that you're leveraging industry and your partners and getting out there and being a leader in front of your patients. I'm so impressed and I'm so thrilled to see the impact that you all are making out there. I do want to, however, shift the conversation a little bit now to talk about how are we as aesthetic practices going to prevail post-pandemic. And we talked a lot about some tactical things that we could do just to communicate and to deliver content to patients around establishing rapport and credentialing ourselves as leaders in our space and making them feel good and being resourceful. And all of that is still important. That doesn't go away. But what I have been busy doing on the back end is doing some research on my own as to what kind of resources would be available for you guys to really lean in on the safety component for your patients so that they feel really comfortable coming back into your practice. And I think that this is just a hot topic as I've been listening to a lot of the Instagram lives and webinars that my clients and other colleagues of theirs are putting on to talk about their transition plans as patients are coming back in. Some of the biggest concerns that they're having are how do we make sure that we are staggering patients properly, that we're taking the right precautions regarding testing, that we're creating an environment for them where they feel safe to come. And so, that's the stuff that those are the questions for me that I really want answered. And so I have actually asked a really special guest to join us today for this strategic advisory. And this is the first guest I've had on for our strategic advisory because I just don't want to waste any time. I think that, you fierce leaders in this tribe need to be the innovators in your space, and that I want to make sure I'm bringing you the front line information and access to the things that are out there to get your practice up and running quickly and smoothly. And so I invited somebody who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, that I know through the industry side of things. And he is the co-founder of Aesthetic Innovation, B&B Aesthetic Innovations. But he also does a lot of work in the industry with people. You'll see him as you start to follow him. Hopefully you guys can all go check him out he'll tell you where you can meet up with him, but you'll see the things that he talks about regarding mental health. And really what I love about working with this person is that when we talk, we always go a level deeper. We both are in agreement that of the same kind of core philosophy about how we can be a resource and serve our clients better. And that is by helping to bring solutions to you to best serve your patients. And so I'm super excited to introduce Brandon James Thomson today. And once he starts talking, you'll get to see him, which means I'll have to be quiet for a minute. But welcome, Brandon.
Thank you so much, Kaeli. I appreciate it.
And Brian, his partner, I don't know if he's going to be joining you today, but he is also, Brian's another partner in the business as well. So Brandon, thank you.
Yes.
You know, first of all, I want everybody to get to know you, because not everybody who's here watching knows, maybe they've even seen you or heard of your name in the industry, but tell us more about, you as a person. Yeah. Tell us a little bit, what made Brandon Brandon?
Yeah. So first of all, Kaeli, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I've known of you for a long time, and it's really interesting how this pandemic has brought people closer. And, the cool thing about us is that you'd reached out to me just because of my LinkedIn profile, about a year ago, and we've kept in touch. And I just think that what you're doing for your practices, for those of you on the call, I actually sent quite a few people that I thought would benefit from her cosmetic boot camp 2 weeks ago. And the feedback that I got from them was incredible. And so, I know what you're doing for practices is heartfelt from your perspective. And listen, for me, I'll give you a quick introduction. I'm a guy, I'm very simple. And I tell everybody this: if you know anything about me, I love God, my family, chips and salsa, Kansas basketball, and margaritas. So I'm very simple, but helping others is the last. And I mean that. And, I'm a father of 2, I'm an active dad. But when it comes to business, what's really truly differentiated me is that, I was a capital equipment rep in aesthetics. I've been in sales for 21 years. And the ongoing joke as a capital equipment rep is, what's the best way to get rid of a rep? Is to purchase, right?
Yeah.
And I would always, the people that I sold to, I stay at their homes. And so, one of the things that I always used as a closing tool, and if your capital equipment reps aren't doing this for you, they should, and you should do it as part of the closing process, is I would set up an open house where I actively used my time post-sale to let them know that I would be there. And I think that's really what started the consultative approach that I've taken with practices. So, from being a number 1 rep, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but that's what kind of put me on the map in aesthetics. I've, grown into national roles with companies. I was hired to launch a dermatology division for a wound care company. So I feel like, my expertise is broad, but I keep coming back to aesthetics. And I just have so many friends in the industry, and the physicians that I've worked alongside mean a lot to me. And so, unfortunately and fortunately, and I'm an eternal optimist, I took a job with Softwave to be closer to home, going through a divorce. And the bottom line is I wanted to be closer to my kids. So I wanted a Southeast role versus a national role. And I lost my job after joining, 5 weeks later, a startup company. Stock options don't mean anything when you lose.
As a result of the pandemic, right?
Correct. Yeah. And the good news is that I already had a distributorship in mind on, we had already had the LLC built. And then I'm also working on a recruiting company as well. So I already had 2 things in the works. I've always wanted to do my own thing. And honestly, you've been inspirational because you've been able to successfully do that. And the bottom line is I want to control my own destiny, and this is the time, right? So I don't know, you have 2 choices to look at life. You can either thrive and just go with the punches, roll with the punches, or just quit. And so this was an opportunity for me to rebound quickly. The way that I was able to pivot, Kaeli, and this is where, so I called about 20 plus doctors within my, family of former customers and friends. And the 2 commonalities between every single conversation was, number 1, I would ask them how they're doing and all of that. But I said, with your practice, how are you, first of all, personally, because mental health is a big deal. And I will mention that. But what are you going to do when you come back? When are you going to plan on coming back? And I've gotten a mix of emotions of, some dermatologists are going to go 95% medical, and I don't know necessarily that's the way to go. And then some are they're worried about, just like what you said, filtering in patients the proper way, not filling up waiting rooms. I love Shino Bay, and I follow Shino Bay and that crowd, and all of them are being conscious. so the two top things are cost savings and cleanliness. And that's kind of where I pivoted. So most
Write that down, guys.
Cost savings.
Note takers out there.
Yeah, cost savings and cleanliness. And what I mean by that is people have had to furlough employees. People have had to let go of employees. And, you know, they haven't had any revenue coming in, but they've had to maintain their lights, right? They might have been able to push back their mortgage or their lease. And, you know, hopefully a lot of people were able to do that. But with cost savings, what I mean by that is things have been so good in our economy over the past, you know, 4 to 6 years that I don't think people are, they've just been plowing ahead, right? Moving forward.
Yeah, and also because if your practice is busy and you're successful running your business, right? This is kind of like the whole core of what we talked about in the boot camp, Brandon, was you're busy. You don't have time to look at all those little things. You know, you're not sitting there like analyzing every little thing going on in your business because you're just busy doing the thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to, you know, most distributorships are selling $100,000 pieces of equipment and, you know, devices that definitely can add value to a practice at the right particular time. And that's not what I wanted to do. And so the two initial partnerships that I made, and throughout my career, I've always wanted to add value. So if there was someone that was a rep for a company that added value, even if I didn't get a kickback or anything in return, I would introduce them. And so one of the companies that I've worked alongside in the past is called Merchant Advocate, and that's cost savings. And I think that's one of those, basically you don't have to change credit card processors. They will monitor your credit card statements. They will negotiate on your behalf. It's an unscrupulous business and it's pretty incredible. They've gone from working with mom and pop little restaurants to physicians' offices to now they have Major League Baseball teams. They're actually working with NASCAR. So they're doing some big deals, but they wanted to partner with me because they knew that I had a lot of industry relationships and they knew that doctors were looking for, so basically I reached out to them and I said, could we figure out a way to partner? And they split the savings. So if they can't save the doctor any money, it's like having an extension of your practice. And so that's number one, and any questions that you have. And then number two is a UV light. So the biggest thing is cleanliness, right? So cost savings and cleanliness. Cleanliness means, and this is not only for patients and consumer confidence, but this is for employees, right? Employees, so there are some people out there, I'm not one of them. I'm not freaked out, you know, I'm not a germaphobe, but there are a lot of people out there that are. And the way that I put the environment and the world we live in now is, if a restaurant gets closed down because of, you know, a food inspection, people don't go back. You only get that one chance. And so with offices opening up, having something like a UV light that is going to put any and extra precaution to keep their patients safe, their employees safe, and themselves safe. And I think that the consumer confidence is going to be at an all-time high. So really cost savings and cleanliness. And I'll go into details about it, but yeah. What are your thoughts about, I know that you were interested immediately when I told you that, and what are your doctors saying?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And what my position is, I'm trying to figure out and develop, you know, a lot of what we do in the academy is on to the minute, you know, rebranding and restructuring our message to the market that is still in line and cohesive with who we are as a business, right? So if I'm a practice that I develop an annual plan, we don't veer off of that annual plan. We're still going to, you know, look to bring on that staff member, build the practice from a structural standpoint, you know, streamline operations, you know, increase revenue X amount. We look at profitability, we look at all those things. But in order to do that, sometimes when an unprecedented pandemic hits, it's kind of like, okay, well, things are not going to get back to normal. And I think that was the biggest, you know, piece of disruptive commentary that I gave last week, was that the reality is the practices that are sitting around, and any of my clients who were like calling me like, Kaeli, you know, well, when things get back to normal, there is no, this is a new normal. And unfortunately, while I do think, and that is a question I had for you too, was just predictions regarding, you know, how the aesthetic industry is going to get back. Cause I want to hear your take on that. But I
Sure.
think I know for me, like I'm like, oh, I'm telling everybody, like, you get on video and don't be vain. And here I am like, oh, my wrinkles, I need Botox so bad, you know, like
Right.
I just figured like my blonde's going to be gone. You know, I'm like ready to go in and get treatments done. And I know a lot of people will be, but the reality is practices have to put the precautions in place to actually slow roll their patients back, but also keep the patients who are like in a queue to come in waiting for them and not going somewhere else, right? So it's kind of this. So what piqued my interest when I was talking with you, Brandon, about both of these things, one, the cost savings component, two, the cleanliness, was that I think that at this point in time, in order to differentiate a practice to differentiate or pivot their messaging, they really need to be talking to the patient about the safety and comfort of coming back to them. You know, what is the process going to be like for you coming back? And so I want to talk a little bit more about this UV light, because when you first said it, I'm like, what is it, a tanning bed?
Yeah, right.
Is it another aesthetic procedure? You're not even selling any aesthetic procedure. What you're doing is you have gone out, basically you have sourced out this device that a practice can put in their place to improve sanitization efforts through this UV light. So they can basically market to their patients that this is one precaution that we're taking, and here's how, through proof, right, through evidence that we know that this light is killing any potential remnants of the COVID-19 virus, or if a patient had been in before you, we can sanitize the room in between. So this is why it's interesting to me. So I want you to tell our tribe a little bit more about what that is specifically, and like what can they basically promise or, use as a selling point to assure their patients that they have, the best, that they're the resource for them to make sure that they're comfortable.
Absolutely. So, and first of all, you asked the one question about what just patients in general and what's going to change. And I'm like you, I've been on webinars every night. My kids go to bed around 9 and I'm on them till 11. A lot of them are on the West Coast. And the one thing that I will say is that, just cleanliness is a big deal, and patience. You're going to get the influx of patients like you and I. I will 100% get my wrinkles taken care of too. But I also don't have the expendable income that I'm used to having, right? And so I probably will just get injectables done. So what I see in my prediction is that there's going to be an influx of patients that have, set aside income for injectables, but the laser procedures, the cool sculpting procedures that requires a lot of touching and feeling, certain things like that, people are going to push away. But in order so that's kind of my prediction. So I think that there's going to be an influx of the patients that have been loyal patients for a long time. And I think that the newer patients are going to need to be convinced. And the convincing is going to be something to make them feel comfortable and to keep consumer confidence high. And I think that a UV light is something that can make that happen. Mm-hmm. So the quick pitch on the UV light is, we got the national distribution lights. It's a light called the Violite. It's powered by Philips, which all of us know. I know that the question will arise, where is it assembled? It is assembled in China. But it's very simple. Sterilization and UV lights have been used for decades, right? Anything as small as a Sonicare toothbrush, right? And so most physicians understand how UV light works. I'm not going to go into all the details because I think that the specs, like, we can just send them to anyone that's interested, but it's a 254 nanometer light. It's a 6-foot light. That's kind of a sexy looking light. It plugs into your outlet, 120 outlet, and it can clean up to 1,700 square feet. But, for small offices that have anywhere from 5 to 10 patient rooms, which I'm sure most of your clients have, I know that you've got a lot of plastic surgeons, they can use this in a surgery center. It's industrial enough to use it in the surgery center, and it can do a small patient room in 10 to 15 minutes. So you do have to have the door shut. You can do it in between patients. People cannot be in the room at the same time. It's that powerful. But the bottom line is, and I'm just going to go over pathogens, bacteria, viruses, superbugs, microorganism, fungus, and household germs. So it kills all of that. And so obviously doctors and their team, I always use team, and this actually goes hand in hand with what we're saying. You should steal this from me. Staff is for infection, team is for unity, right? So when their team members are cleaning down their thing, they still need to do that, right? And door handles. But this is going to be a second way to precaution themselves to make everybody feel comfortable, including their employees. And it's $2,500. So, I mean, you might only need 1 or 2 of these lights for an entire office with 10 patient rooms.
Right. And like, how long does the light last? Like, are there replacement things? I mean, because, part of, I want to make sure that, we're not, as practices, making decisions that are impulsive or just, this is
or scare tactics.
No,
Yeah.
I although I think that that's a palatable price point to be able to market to and make your patients and actually make them safe. Like, literally, it would be awful for your patient to come in and contract.
Well, imagine if your patient, and this isn't used as a scare tactic, but imagine just like I don't know, just an unhappy customer leaving your practice, right? If they were to contract it at any facility, that facility is going to get a bad name. But if you're using every precaution that you can, they're going to listen. They did everything they could. It was an accident, right? That's where the consumer confidence is high. So to answer 2 questions, 12,000 hours is the light. The replacement light, Brian's actually looking it up right now, but so 12,000 hours. And then the second thing is so you've got it, we are in the sweet spot. So you can buy an industrial unit that's going to be $15,000 and it looks like an industrial unit with wires everywhere. You can buy a small handheld unit that would take probably 3 hours to clean a tiny little patient room that would, cost a couple $100. And then ours is really kind of that. Put it this way, I've been in the medical space and my goal is to provide this, for physicians, but we've already gotten calls from a couple of buddies of mine that are just in business in general that own 2 million square footage worth of warehouse space. So, and where they're looking to use this is where their employees congregate in their kitchen, in their waiting room, right? And so that's really the places. So, and surgery centers, patient rooms, hopefully that answers your question.
Right. Yeah, I almost feel like, I wonder if docs could talk to their landlords about this needs to be a requirement in our building or something,
Well, my parents' neighbors own an M salon where, you've got estheticians and hairdressers. Right. And so we're having a webinar with them with all of the renters. And so they're going to buy one for their facility, but they're only going to buy one for the congregation areas, but they're going to offer it. They want their leasees to purchase this, right?
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer idea. I mean, they could even buy a couple and rent them out, if you happen to have a big practice like that where you have subtenants, but I think, as a tenant in a building, I think, this would be something to, for sure, they should look into, if not, buying it on their own outright. But
your forte is how to make practices profitable, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you can create a differentiation to market your practice right now, I mean, obviously we're doing this for the safety of patients, but the bottom line is we're running a business, right? And so if you're running a business and you can, I mean, there's going to be that certain loyal patient population, like I said, that are going to flood the gates. And there's going to be the 50%. I mean, it's almost like purchasing equipment, right? You get the early adopters and then you get that middle, the bulk of people are going to be hesitant. And if you can kind of ease their pain, then why wouldn't you do it?
Well, it's like the place that I mean, if I was to ever get injectable and fillers, I would go to a place that offers Pronox, or that, it's just it's the extra layer of comfort, I mean, I totally am down for this. And I also think, one thing we can do for our Academy clients is create some templates, to help use this as a marketing tool. Cause I could just see, I think this is, if I'm going through my Instagram feed and I see this just clean, sterile environment, and actually the light is pretty sexy looking. So, yeah.
Well, Kaeli, you know what, just I got to pivot there because that was an unbelievable segue that was unintended. And so you said the Pronox. One of the things that we're super excited about that's in our pipeline is the same person that invented the Pronox has actually come out with a better mousetrap, and we've got the national distribution rights to it, and it gives the exact oxygen levels, and it will re-oxygenate the patient. So our goal as a distributorship is to come up with things that are going to help practices that don't compete with other device manufacturers.
Well, that's why your business is called Aesthetic Innovations, you know, which is why, you know, I have you on here and I'm not interviewing, you know, other non-innovative options.
I get it. Well, we're extremely appreciative. Keep going.
So I do want you, so I'm going to, basically how it works in our tribe is right now we're going through a May advisory series of Prevailing post-pandemic. And I have units where our members can go in and access all of the resources like this video that we're making, and I can put in more information about this in a PDF and all of that, and whatever kind of other resources that you want. But real quick before I send them, you know, to go talk to you directly,
sure.
I do want to touch base on the one other component that you talked about, which you just kind of glazed over, which was the cost savings piece and this merchant advocate. I think that this would warrant maybe having a separate conversation, but just so I understand a little bit better about that offer. So basically what you're saying is, you know, this company will come in and just look at the fees that you're paying, because, right, your point was you guys, aesthetic businesses have been just busy, right? I mean, this is really the whole core of practice optimization. And this principle that I've developed is that we end up making decisions on the fly because we're fixing a problem which we created because we've been busy, and, you know, we're filling a gap. Totally normal. All businesses do it. But now there's never been a better time to really drill down and look at, you know, maybe things such as the frivolous fees that you're paying through credit card processing. So the reason why I wanted you to talk a bit about that just for a minute is to just so that people know, so my tribe knows that there's this option out there. So basically tell me, you know, in 1 minute, kind of what that process is like and what that's all about.
Well, the cool thing is, Kaeli, and I know that one thing I love about you is you do your homework. And just for those of you in the tribe, she had a call with the company just to vet the company prior to me talking about it. And, you know, I wouldn't partner with any other company, but she wanted to basically, you know, hear all the details. Very simple. So, you know, I guarantee you that everyone out there, plastic surgery offices, dermatology offices, all aesthetic offices probably have 10 to 50 reps that come in and try to get them to change their credit card processor. And the whole game is they'll undercut them by a couple percentage points, and then they get them on the back end, right? So what Eric Cohen at Merchant Advocate did about 15 years ago, he was in that processing world. He didn't like it from an ethical perspective because basically they would undercut the rate, and then they go back and, you know, create points on the back end and completely erroneous line items. So what they do is they say, do not switch credit card processors. We actually don't want you to. What we will do is we will have a human being look over your statements, line item by line item. And Kaeli, you were an office manager. So and the one thing that I always, when I bring this up to physicians is, listen, you weren't probably trained in business. There are some that have been, but the majority have not. And their office managers they probably were not trained to go over credit card statements, right? And so this is like having an extension of your practice, look at line item by line item, get rid of all erroneous line items, and negotiate directly with the credit card processor on the practice's behalf. Every 60 days, they get an opportunity to increase that rate. They back it back down. So it's basically, it's almost like having someone fight with the insurance companies, right? But they're doing it for your credit card processing fees, and that's it. So they save you money, and then what they do is they split the savings with the practice. So if they can save you $1, they keep 50%. It's that simple. And so it's just something that, as a business owner, if I was taking a lot of credit card transactions, I would 100% use.
Yeah. So I think what I'd like to do, because I'm still trying to fully, you know, I call myself blonde, even though you can tell the brown's coming out. But so like I have to really, really, really understand something. And I will tell you, yes, I was a managing director of a practice. And I did look at, you know, line by line. But what I did not realize is that the actual processing fees through our credit card processor were negotiable. I didn't really even think about negotiating that rate. And I didn't really do the math on, you know, when you're running a 7-figure, 8-figure business, you know, what that can add up to. But I also, what I would like to do is set up with you a separate meeting for, and I'll do like some some info, like, you know, if you're interested in this in the tribe, and then they can do like a private meeting with you and Eric to really learn about the nuances of this.
Yeah.
Because I think it might be enticing for some practices just to have it looked at, just to know. And what,
well, you know what I look at it, Kaeli? I know this is a sick way of looking at it, but it's like walking around with 103-degree temperature and not getting the COVID test right now, right? And the bottom line is, if they can't save you money, you know that you're doing the best you can, right? And then you have them monitor, and you can check it every 6 months, and they'll do it for free.
Right.
And if they can't save
well,
you more,
I actually, yes, that's awful.
that was horrible.
But wouldn't you take a test? If you didn't have to go compromise yourself, like you would go just get a test to know, just for the peace of mind that, like, yeah, I'm not carrying it around or something, going to transfer it. So.
Right. But yeah, and the bottom line is, and if like I said, if they can't, so all that it takes from a practice, and I do think that you should set up a call, but the bottom line is they get 2 months worth of credit card statements. They see if they can find the savings. They call the credit card company, negotiate on your behalf. If it's less than $1,200 a year, you keep the savings. So, I mean, you're gonna, yeah, so it's a no-brainer. But yeah, I'd love to set up a call, and they're willing to have a call with your tribe members.
Right. No, that's awesome. Okay, perfect. So I have make sure I ask all the questions I wanted while I have your time here. You know, predictions, yeah, patients returning aesthetic procedures. And I am planning to have one of my clients on next week. So he's going to talk about, he's actually had his practice open because he's doing reconstructive and trauma as well. And so he's really saying these are the things that we're doing now and what to expect.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's the biggest question for me is like how to reopen, you know, with minimal disruption, but keep the volume up as much as possible to be able to ease the concerns and, you know, just provide comfort and safety to not only existing patients who are already in your, you know, pipeline, but to continue to market and step on the gas pedal to bring in new clientele as well. So, Brandon, I can't thank you enough. I think, you know, addressing 1, cost savings, and 2, cleanliness, you know, it's just right in line with the messaging that I think we should be talking about right now. Now, I guess final question is, how can everybody learn more about this or find you? I will post all this information after this. Yeah.
So the last thing that my business partner, Brian, said, aesthetics is elective, consumer confidence is key, right? So, I mean, that is true, but it's super simple. It's violite.net, and that's VIOLIGHT.net. And if you use the code B, the letter B, the letter N, the letter B, Violite, you get $100 off. And then obviously we get credit from the manufacturer. So you save money and you give us business, but you know, that's the goal. And then my email address for any information on this is just an info. It's info@bnbaestheticinnovations.com. And Kaeli, I just want to say I'm extremely appreciative of the opportunity to be your first. You know, I think that it's super cool. I love what you're doing, and I hope a continued partnership.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. You know, I'm hesitant to bring sale. I don't want this to be sales format. So, you know, if you really do continue to innovate and bring true resource, then, you know, hey, we want to hear everything. So thank you. And thank you for the ghost of Brian and his.
Hi guys. Hey, thank you so much. Love it.
All right. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye.